Welcome everybody. How's it going? Dirty Talk with Nana. And we got a good one in store for everybody here. Got Brian, got Stevie B, got a championship to talk about. So we'll
Wait,
get right into it.
Marty, can I do the Hugo entrance?
Go
Dirty
right
Talk
ahead.
with Nana.
Wow. Feels like nothing's changed.
Pretty sweet voice.
Well, this is the first podcast without Hugo. So we'll see how that
First
goes.
of possibly many.
Hugo
True.
basically said that he has nothing to offer right now, aka he's out of the playoffs and doesn't want to talk about fantasy football because he's hurting.
Hugo talks about his team every episode of your podcast or every recording the podcast, and as soon as his team's out of the running for the championship, he's gone. Post schmost, he says.
I'm out of the playoffs, and I'm just here to welcome and wish congrats to my two friends on here who have a chance of winning. I don't think either of them are going to win it, but we'll save that for later.
Yep. I mean, I got an uphill battle against Vince this week here, but fingers crossed it works out. I put up a good amount of points against you last week. Hopefully it continues, but Jorge will be another tough matchup for Brian too, I think.
Well, can we just talk about my last 2 weeks? I mean, I faced Brendan 2 weeks in a row, with the second week being for $100, and I knocked it out of the park. I mean, when you got Zay Jones doing 3 or 4 touchdowns in a game, I forget what he did last week. I mean, my team's unstoppable. I didn't even expect that player to contribute to my team at all this year. I picked him up off the waiver.
You're starting him tonight?
Oh, yeah, of course.
In the rain against the Jets defense?
Mm-hmm. And
put it on the podcast. How much points is he getting tonight?
I guarantee he at least gets 2 touchdowns and he gets over 20 points.
Oh, my God.
20 points? No way. You want to make a podcast bet right now? I'll bet you $10 he doesn't get over 20 points.
Deal.
All right.
I'll take that. $20.
Damn, dude, you should put some DraftKings money on that. That's probably a good pay.
Money on that,
touchdowns? Man. Are you kidding me? Yikes. But yeah, I mean, there's not a lot of players going tonight, in all honesty, from Sleeper, it seems like. So besides him, I think that's it.
That's probably it.
Yeah.
In terms of the matchups left, yeah, I think you're right.
Yeah. Well, I guess we can do a little cheers to Steve and Brendan. You guys, Brendan, like always, you made the playoffs, fell short a little bit, but Steve still put up a good amount of points, just a little unlucky. It came down to it, but moving on. So still a good season in my eyes if you make the playoffs. And Brendan did what he always does, apparently, which is somehow hold on. Honorable mention to Alex. I would say just getting as close as you can be, just falling a little bit short. Definitely turned your season around, just a little bit too late.
Totally agree. But I mean, Berrigan's team, I thought was absolute dumpster fire at the beginning of the year. And then I found myself rooting for his team later on. So, I know I screwed him over at the beginning of the year by drafting Algier. He really didn't want me to do that. I saw him with tears in his eyes. I saw him literally around the corner with tears in his eyes after I drafted Algier. I saw it out of the corner of a video because I wasn't at the draft party, but he was sitting back there going like this because he could have reached for him. I believe he had a pick before me, and he didn't because I reached for him. And look at how he's doing. He just had his first breakout week this week. I mean, it's looking good.
Yeah, I mean, I still think Alex did very good in the draft. I think now he's got 2 young, talented running backs in White and Pacheco. So I think he did pretty good. And, it's nice to be more optimistic about Alex's team going forward when it's been kind of tough sledding in past years. So
yeah, I think
Alex, good season, even though you didn't make the playoffs. I think your team is definitely on the rise.
Yeah, I think he definitely has more to look forward to, and he was also pretty firm about not trading them this year, so it shows that he believes in those guys. It'll be interesting to see how they develop, though. I mean, I think he had those trades with Vinny, so he doesn't have a first for a couple of years, so he's going to hope they ride out. But I think the way he finished the season, everybody was kind of rooting for him. I think he had 5 wins straight before that last week where the team just didn't show up on him, but he could definitely see himself a playoff team next year. I think in terms of surprises, like it's easy to point to Alex because of those wins. It wasn't as like dramatic of a win streak, but I think Marty, you were probably one of the bigger surprises, right? I mean, if you're a bottom 3 team last year to be in the final
Last.
4 this year, it's something definitely to be proud about.
Yeah, I mean it's you know, when you can go from last place to a top 4 team, I mean that's a big hill to climb. Honestly, it wasn't hard to do better than last place. So I mean last year dealt with a lot of injuries and losing Saquon was huge. I didn't really have the running back depth and depth is a very important thing, and I'm sure Brendan can agree now. But last year it was a problem for me, and it led me to last place. So
What a spot on call you guys had, you and Hugo, about Brennan's depth problem. And I think there was someone else on the podcast that one too. I can't remember who, but like that was called right from the start. As soon as Brennan's team gets injuries, he has nobody and his team's gonna flounder. And that's exactly what happened.
yeah, Brendan was definitely, you know, picking up guys, plug and playing, and sleeper that's already slim pickings in the waiver wire there. So it just made things a lot harder for him and
At least he drafted this year.
put him in the butt. But to be honest, I think, you know, it sucks at the same time. Brennan's doesn't have the draft picks now that he's traded them to you, but you know, hopefully he can hit on those second rounders. And I don't know what he has exactly, but I know he's traded away those first. But hopefully he can get a little bit more depth because he has a good team. He just needs he's 1 or 2 good players away from having an elite team. So
yeah, Cup got injured. That was a huge blow to his team.
I think it's just a hard league to replace starters through free agency, right? I mean, you look at the trending up like each week, and there might be 50 guys that's on that trending or 25 or whatever it is, and like 90% of them are rostered, right? So it's hard to replace them. Do you guys have any like top free agents? Do you guys have any top free agents this year of like pickups? I know Brian definitely has an opinion on that, but
like free agents that we've picked up that have worked out.
made an impact, yeah.
Should I dare drop the name McKinnon on you, Steve? But
That's a big one. Yeah, it's a huge one, dude. He scored more points in the last 2 weeks than any running back in the league.
yeah, I guess I would
one.
really have to look to see, you know, free agent wise, who's made that difference. But I think now, you know, with it's just funny how things work out with injuries. Like not funny, but to a fantasy level, a little bit funny that, you know, Clyde Edwards-Helaire gets hurt, and then all of a sudden opens the door for somebody else to step in and really take advantage. And I feel like that's just what happened with McKinnon.
Yeah, I think when you talk about like free agents, like McKinnon is definitely one of them. Zay Jones is definitely another. I think Zonovan Knight on the Jets was a really big pickup by Dylan at the end of the year, because any of us playoff teams could have definitely used him as at least a flex or something. He was very much the starter at the end of the year. I think you just touched on, if we were to talk, like look back a little bit, superlative style of like biggest trades. I think Dylan's trade to Alex, a first round pick for Clyde Edwards-Helaire, is pretty huge. I mean, like within 4 games there, he's not the starter, right? So that's probably one of the bigger ones of the year. There's a lot of trades this year, I feel like, more than general. But
Steve, what about Hayden Hurst? I mean, he's not a great tight end, but I mean, I can start him, plug him now, you know, in a league that it's hard to find a startable tight end.
Yeah, I mean, especially for you where you traded, like he's no worse than Tunyon, who you traded in the offseason, right? So it's like pretty good wash for you there. So I think tight end is just becoming very much like this year, especially, it's very much a black hole position, right? I think last time I looked at the stats, Kelsey was like 100 points higher than the next closest tight end, right? So
part of the reason why Brian is where he is right now, just having that tight end that can consistently put up 30 points is just incredibly rare. And he's the only one that can really do it to his level right now. And unfortunately, Matt thought that was going to be Waller on the topic of first round draft picks. And, you know,
that's true. That's another like
black
big
hole
trade. Yeah.
Yeah, you got
that's a pretty big hole in
that
Matt's
Kelsey
team.
pick. Never trade him. He's untradeable, that's for sure. And I haven't been reached out too much about him over the past couple of years because he's untradeable. You'll never find a better tight end in the league right now than Kelsey.
Yeah. Much agreed. I mean,
Who do you guys think's going to win it? Let's hear the predictions here.
Well-
pretty obvious. I'll let Marty go first.
I mean, you never know with playoff football. It's anybody's game really once you make the playoffs there. Vinny's team is just super scary on paper. It's something that I'm obviously dealing with this week. And matchup wise, I feel like I enjoy my matchups a little bit more than Vinny's team, but I'm scared. I don't know. It's gonna be close.
I'm not scared at all. I mean, you look at Jorge's team, he's got some good players, but I mean, he has some major flaws in his team. Like,
What are those flaws? Let's hear it. I actually think he has
I'm not even gonna
a great
pronounce this
matchup
right.
compared to you. And I think if Hugo, sorry, that's a bad mix up. Edit that out. If Jorge makes the championship, I think he's actually gonna win it. Based off his matchups, his
Well, I
matchups
mean,
are
dude,
really
he's
good
plugging in
next year.
Taysom Hill at tight end, which all right, fine. If
They're all a crapshoot at this point.
you know, Kirk, Lazard, yeah, but I'm naming off the players. I'm not too. I don't have very high expectations for them. He's gonna really hope, you know, he has those star players, Jefferson and Jamar Chase and Josh Allen, that they really perform. Because I mean, if you look at my team, I mean, I don't see how he could beat it. I got McCaffrey, Kelsey, Tyreek Hill, Zay Jones. Like I said, is going off for at least 2 touchdowns tonight, over 20 points. I'm gonna win $10 off Steve. You know, Montgomery, I feel like every year during playoffs, Montgomery all of a sudden starts raking in points.
He's a playoff monster, dude. Those last
Yeah.
4 weeks of the season, he ends up averaging more than he does in the first 12 weeks combined.
So I'm really banking on that. And Kirk Cousins ends up a top 10 quarterback this year. So I'll take it. You know, I was kind of weak at that position, as was pointed out on this podcast earlier. I can't believe they called me out for that, but they were right. But, you know, Kirk Cousins stepped it up. And the funny thing is, last week, mid-game, when Kirk Cousins had like -2 points, or maybe he had just gotten a few points, and I sent that Dragon Ball Z power up gif and told everyone to send me their energy, all of a sudden it turned around to be the biggest, you know, comeback in NFL history, and Kirk Cousins put up like over 40 points.
Yeah, that was unbelievable. Matt Ryan is just, I feel kind of bad for him at that point there, but damn, dude.
It works, man. I think
unbelievable.
fantasy karma is one of the biggest things out there. You got to just manifest that shit, or you're just in trouble.
Have your DBZ gifts on lock, because
Yep.
they come in clutch.
Yep, start searching now.
Going back to your guys' matchup, when I don't know. I kind of agree that it's going to be a harder matchup than you think, to Steve's point. When I'm looking at Jorge's team, it reminds me of Brennan's team in the regular season, where he's super top heavy. He's got people at positions that are at the top of their position, basically. And I know you have, when I'm looking at your team, I truthfully do like the amount of depth that you have. I mean, you have a solid starter in every single position, and I think that's where Jorge's downfall is. But when you're looking at his 2 flexes, that's when I start getting more concerned. But as far as his, like, you know, Josh Allen, Jamar Chase, Justin Jefferson, Josh Jacobs, those are some of the best players in their position, and those players can they can have 60-point weeks, they can have 50-point weeks. So
Yeah,
I
to
don't
Marty's
know.
point, I think you're more balanced than you think. I mean, you're talking about how your players are very reliable, but I think the players Marty just named, those are as reliable of like top 5 finishes at their position this year as you can get, right? So,
Yeah,
I mean,
I can't
to
believe
rely
how
on
good Jacobs did this year. That I didn't
He's
touch him
RB2.
in any other drafts. I didn't want him.
Yeah, he's one of those players that's been traded a lot in the league, and
Mhm.
you know, he's found a good home with Jorge now. It seems that everything's starting to click together, and now he's having an unbelievable season. So
that's another bet I lost to you, Brian, is I took Zamir White thinking that Jacobs was going to falter this year like he has been. I don't think he has more than like 50 yards this year. So
Yeah, no, I'll be getting that 20.
it's very surprising. I think he's probably one of the more unsuspecting fantasy like booms this year of all the players you could think of.
well, let's hear it from you, Steve, and then from me. And then you guys can do my matchup too. But who do you have winning that matchup between Brian and Jorge?
I have Jorge winning it. I have Jorge winning the whole thing. if I just look at his matchups this week, next week, I think Brian
Get
definitely
out of
has the
here,
big.
dude. That's BS, and you know it.
You're gonna let me talk?
I'm just saying, you know that. That's just a hot take, is all it is.
It's not a hot take because I think Jorge has enough consistency in his matchups this week. And if you guys have looked, the weather is a huge factor this week. They're saying that it's more of a factor than it's ever has been. There's 5 games projected to be wind chill, less than 5 degrees. We have snow, we have rain. That's going to factor into how much throws are happening. He has a very safe team in terms of even if they're only throwing the ball 10, 20 times a game, Jefferson and Chase are seeing the majority of those. You trust Tua to throw the ball like with that kind of weather? I don't, man. I'm just saying, I think this is the week that you're going in confidently. If there's anything to know about fantasy, it's when you think you have it, you don't. All right. So I'm here saying I think Jorge is going to win against you. Marty and Vinny's matchup's a little bit of a toss-up for me. Could it go either way? Probably. I think Marty's going to lose that one. It's going to be Vinny, Jorge. Jorge wins. That's my bold prediction.
It's a fair prediction. I'll let you defend yourself, Brian, if you have anything to say, but
I mean, I think I already said it. It's just, you look at some of the players on Jorge's team that he's starting, and he has some of the top players in their positions, but as long as I get the expected output out of my players on my team, he's not going to stand a chance. And, what am I projected? 250 to Jorge's 242. I mean, I'd probably put 250 sounds about right. I'd imagine Jorge comes in around 2. Steve, what are you laughing at? Around 220.
Dude, that's another thing we should just briefly touch on. The sleeper projections are wild. They're never get reached. And for Brian to say 250 sounds about right, I'm pretty sure like the high score all time is like 255 or something.
It's right under 300. Vinny, I think, holds the highest at 299, I want to say.
But like to say 250 sounds about right is just so like in your face. But if you're confident in your team, you want to be confident in your team at this point. But
I feel like your matchup with Jorge, the projections are way higher. To Steve's point,
you're right. You guys are playing
some
way higher. It should be at like 220, and mine's probably about right. His is probably about right. Yours maybe a little high. Marty, you should probably be like 2. We'll give you like 215 based on your players.
I'll throw another $10 bet your way, Brian, if this interests you. I bet your team doesn't break 230 this week.
Doesn't break 230?
Yep.
It's easy money on Marty's end.
$10.
Oh, I don't. Take it down to
Wow, you're gonna back down that quickly, Brian?
Take it down to 220.
225. I'll meet you in the middle.
225. Deal, $10.
All right. But I think that truthfully, and the reason why
this has just become a betting podcast.
We're just making it a little interesting. But yeah, I mean, I'm looking at the matchups, dude, and Zay Jones, I honestly he has a tough matchup against the Jets.
He's
And,
not
I
hitting
mean,
that
in
projection.
5 minutes, we're minutes away from him getting his first touchdown. Just saying.
McCaffrey against Washington, another tough run defense, and then Mixon against New England. Their strength is their defense. And then I don't know. I'm not sold that a lot of these players are going to hit 31 projected points for McCaffrey. I know he's great. It just all seems a little too high. But and then Jorge on the flip side of that too. I mean, Jamar Chase is going against New England too. I think that's going to be tough sledding for the Bengals in general. But we'll see. And then Christian Kirk against the Jets. I don't know. I think this is going to be a low scoring game tonight. So I'm not convinced in the points. So
It's going to be
that's
very
another
low
player.
scoring from the Jets end. I'll tell you that.
yeah, another player in the matchup tonight, Christian Kirk. So for Jorge. So I guess there's someone you got to look out for tonight, then, Brian, when you're watching.
When Zay Jones gets all the touchdowns, how much is Kirk really going to be pulling in?
But we'll keep it moving. If I had to pick Brian, I'm truthfully am going to side with you. I think you'll end up beating Jorge. I do think that the matchup isn't going to be as high scoring as Sleeper thinks, but I think it's going to be. I think you'll win by less than 25 points. I still think it's going to be close. But we can move on to me and Vinny. But yeah, I mean, we know it's an uphill battle for me against Vinny, and I think he's got a little bit of an advantage over me with matchups too. But I'll let you
You got a
guys.
team though. You know, Barkley and
Lamar this
Diggs
week.
could go off this week. I hope Diggs doesn't because that means Josh Allen is. But you know, you got some weapons on that team.
No Lamar this week either. Officially rolled out.
Well, somebody wants to say a quick hello.
Oh, here we go.
Oh God.
Here we go.
Oh, God.
I just want to
You
say
really gonna show your
thank
face
you
right
to
now?
those who think that I am running away from this podcast. Literally, I offered to come on. I preferred not to, but I did say I still would come on. My pitch was, I think Jorge and Coco and Marty, you three are still in it. I think that's a way better listen for everyone. And now what people are thinking I'm running away and shaking my head.
Wow.
Hey,
Wow,
once you
Hugo.
resign from office,
think the
man,
rumor
rumors
started
start
with you two.
swirling. Hey,
I mean, Hugo, you literally said that you couldn't join the podcast because you have plans, and you're literally at Marty's place. And you said that you didn't want to join the podcast because you're being unselfish. But my opinion is it was very selfish because as soon as your team didn't stand a chance for the championship, and hey, let's remind ourselves here that Hugo's team went 4-10 on the season, which is terrible.
6-game losing streak to end it, boys. 6 games.
And on the 2 weeks ago, you texted me saying you have one of the best teams in the league.
I had the unluckiest year. I'm not going to get into it. I literally had the unluckiest year. Go watch my weekly performances against teams. It's either the top scoring team. I was the most scored on team by a mile this year. I was the most scored on team. So I was up against it the entire season. And yeah, some weeks my guys just didn't show up. But I was just getting fucking rained on fantasy points. And it is what it is. It's literally 6-game losing streak. No one has a 6-game losing streak in fantasy football. This guy did.
Well,
Bad teams do. Bad teams.
yeah.
Hey,
Yeah,
to Hugo's
historically
defense-
bad people do.
to Hugo's defense, last year I had a 6-game losing spree, came in last place, and came back the following year to make the playoffs. And
But
hopefully,
to your defense, you had your draft pick. Hugo doesn't.
It's okay. It's okay. I'm sure you would have rather had James Conner going into your playoff push. I'm sure he would have helped you more. But
I don't think it would have made a difference, man.
yeah, and that trade is going to be determined. It determines who you draft.
I think
But
it's already determined, dude. I smoked you on that trade.
it is what it is for now until the players keep pulling on. You're out. So see you next season, Steve.
You know what's worse than the points for guy? The points against guy. That's you, man.
The first thing he reaches for. You know he's been thinking about
Anything else that you can bring up here? I'll let you boys get back to it.
no,
Bye-bye.
I mean, it is what it is. We're just getting into the matchups here. So thanks for the appearance.
Season
cute
23
tonight.
is my year. I'm calling it right now. You heard it here first, folks.
Yeah, I heard it first the last 6 years.
You know, some things don't change, right? I mean, Hugo comes on the podcast, and you know what happens? Hugo's team gets brought up. So same story, different day.
That's
but
true. That's true.
Yup.
Maybe
But,
try and shoot it.
anyways,
All right, so where's
we'll
your
get into
bold
it.
predictions? What's the championship winner? What do we got here?
well, like Brian said before we started talking, it's hard not to predict yourselves to make it to the championship when you're fighting for it. So I know Brian's going to say that he's moving on to next week, and I'm just going to keep my mouth quiet because my matchup can go either way, and I'm just going to let it go. But I hope
You're
there's a new
Not
winner.
how it works. You're the host of the podcast. You're contractually
Let's get
obligated
your
to
hot
make a
take,
prediction.
Marty.
All
Yeah,
right,
sure.
my hot take is that it's going to be me and Brian in the championship.
If that's what's happening, I need a bet right now.
Let's go.
if you guys play each other, what's the bet for who wins?
Hold on, guys. No bets in the podcast or in the chat. Commissioner rules.
There's already been
A
two
little
bets
bit
made
too
this
late for that,
podcast.
Guys, hold on. Why didn't Matt want bets in the fantasy chat when fantasy is a bet in itself? It's gambling on fantasy teams, and the bet was around fantasy.
Matt just doesn't want people to bring their own bets into the chat when it can just be held separately on your own chat, which I think
No.
is fair. It shouldn't be
Guys,
clouding
we
the chat.
need more engagement in the chat.
I'm with
So,
Brian.
if
If
it
this
needs
is going to
to-
be the last podcast of the year, let's air it all out. I want to hear about the Jersey gate with Hugo at the beginning of the year. What was going on with the Justin
I gotta
Herbert
hear about
Beasley?
that.
Dude, first of all, I don't even want to talk about that anymore.
You have to.
And the shittiest part about that whole scenario is that me and Nico had a following bet that Gabriel Davis would have a better year than Mooney, and that definitely was going to be me as the winner. But I just couldn't deal with going through another Jersey bet with Hugo, so I was like, "Fuck it, call it off. I'm not dealing with this shit ever again." But lo and behold, it would have been me getting the jersey this year, and Gabriel Davis hasn't been doing that great either. But so, I mean, long story short, don't do jersey bets with Hugo. It's more of a headache than you really need.
Give us like the Spark Notes version.
I want all the drama.
Spark
It's the last
Notes version
podcast of the year.
As simple as I can make it. I owe Hugo a jersey. Alex owes me a jersey. So I told Alex to get Hugo a jersey. That was it. It turned into a whole ordeal. It blew up over nothing. I thought it was a simple transaction, but Hugo hated it for whatever reason. So
Sounds about right.
yeah.
There's been a lot of rumors circulating about Brian and his
It's gonna
health.
make me drink is the point that Hugo was getting.
Cheers. Cheers.
Cheers. My God.
There's a lot of rumors circulating about Brian and his recent bets, and I think the people want to know Brian did in fact go to a live golf tournament with COVID, despite having very heavy symptoms and losing his voice. And
There's no proof of that.
yeah,
There's absolutely no proof
nowadays,
of that.
COVID is a thing. If you're that concerned,
Do not
about
search
it,
my closet for any t-shirts. There's no proof of that.
and I think fantasy is a game filled of karma, and Brian may or may not have said, "Cough, cough. I'm gonna give Brooks Koepka COVID." And who
Now you're
knows
just
how the
making up
fantasy season
shit.
is gonna end because
Hey
of it.
guys, should we bring it back around to I've always raised the flag when I notice any sense of collusion in the league. I always have. And a lot of times we open up investigations and they don't lead to anything. But one of the biggest collusions in the league that never truly got fully investigated was the classic reverse trade between Steve and Dylan. We never investigated that. A reverse trade because someone was drunk when they traded. That is the definition of collusion, because there was definitely a transaction outside of the league that played into that trade back.
All I can say is proper evidence has been turned over to the commissioner, and based on my lawyer, I'm not allowed to speak on exact terms. But what I can say is there may have been an instance where someone grabbed another person's phone and logged into Sleeper. I'm not willing to say who, when, why, or if this is even true, but all I can say is that the proper evidence has been reviewed by the commissioner and his ruling has come down. I think the bigger thing we need to worry about is there's been a bounty, a threat put on our commissioner's head. This past week, someone said, shoot him in
I
reference
saw
to Matt.
that.
In reference to Matt.
Oh my God, you're right.
And I think we all need to take this time. Can we all just have a moment of silence, a 5-second moment of silence for Matt and his health? Thank you.
Well, that was for you, Matt. I hope you enjoyed it. Well, I guess we can move on to another topic, because I don't think we really need to bring up the the whole reverse trade scenario. Shame on Steve, kind of situation there, but I think we've moved past it. But Brian, to cap it off, a topic that you wanted to bring up, and probably a topic that Matt doesn't want to hear at all right now, but let's talk about what you think about rule changes.
Rule changes.
Sorry
Let's
again,
go. I'm gonna start it out with I think we need. I don't want to do like individual defensive players, but 2 more IDPs. We need at least 2 more bench spots. We need to reduce IR by at least 1, and we need maybe 1 more taxi squad too. And what we need to do is be able to build these massive teams and reduce the amount of people available to pick up so that it just becomes a lot more easy for me to keep my dynasty team winning into the future.
Well, I think the league is probably on board with you when it comes to the IR slot going down. I think what is it still 4 right now?
It's 4, yeah. We need to reduce that by like 1 or 2.
To Matt's credit, I think that was increased during the COVID years, and they're not tested for COVID anymore, so that could probably get reduced.
I mean, I can understand to a certain degree with the IDPs, but on
2 more, or at least 1 more.
I honestly think we should just get rid of it. But that's just my opinion.
Why?
I don't know. I just think it's the points that they give is so minimal, and
No, they make
Or
a big
kickers.
impact. Look, some of the defensive players will put up over 20 points.
So if you have like a really good defensive player, it's like a cheat code. It's really good to have. We just
If
haven't
they're-
had. What we need is our first defensive player trade. Get people
Yeah,
going.
either
It's just
Oh, that's a good
saturated. There's
point.
so many. There's so many of them.
if the
Yeah,
scoring
that's why we need more slots.
if the scoring is the way that it is right now in the league with IDP, I just don't really like it. I don't think it makes enough of an impact to really matter. I don't know. I'm against it, truthfully. I think if we're gonna be adding more players, that whole system needs to be revamped. And then if that's the case, I think we need to do a redraft for like defensive players to make it fair or something. I don't know. It's
Why? Why can't we just
I
treat
don't
it
think we need to
regular
redraft
draft?
at all. There's so many of them, and I think honestly, if the point is that their points don't matter, the same thing could be argued for kickers. And if we just take 1 kicker out, don't even worry about it, and add 2 defensive players, it makes us one of the reasons we play fantasy is to talk shit with our friends and bet money, but also to stay in tune with football. It's just going to make us pay more attention on the defensive side than we would otherwise. So I think it's just a win-win for everybody.
I have a rule change I want to propose for kickers. I don't know how we actually have our settings set right now, so maybe we do something like this or maybe we don't. Deduct points when they miss close kicks, like deduct more points when they miss close
I think
kicks.
they lose a point for every.
Yeah,
They lose
so,
a point for every
if
miss.
it's within like 20 yards or something, that make it like -4.
Yeah.
That's just more of a reason to get rid of them, I think. I'm not taking a -4 for an extra
Well, it
point.
makes it important to pick a good kicker that's gonna actually hit its field goals. You know, why are we getting deducted 1 point?
But can
for a
you
missed 20
identify
yard
a
to a
good
50
kicker?
yard? It should be
Can you-
deducted more points when it's.
Can you even identify a good kicker, though? You think
Yeah,
you could name?
Folk,
You think you can name 2 of
Carlson?
the? You think you can name 3 of the top 5 kickers this year?
No.
Okay,
I
then-
name at least one, but yeah, I don't know. I think kickers are fine. If you want to make an argument to get rid of them in general, I can understand that.
What about what I just said though, Marty? What were your thoughts on that rule change?
I think that's too much. I think if someone's losing 4 points, it's I can understand if you want to make an argument that if someone misses like an extra point, maybe they lose 1. If it's a field goal, maybe they lose 2 points. If you want to make the point that if you're missing kicks that are crucial, you should be deducted more points. I can understand that. But I feel like, a missed field goal is a missed field goal. I don't think the yardage should matter.
But you
No.
should get more points for longer field goals made and deducted points that go up based on how long that field goal were. Because if it was a short field goal, you should deduct more points than if you missed a 60-yard field goal.
Yeah, I would say that, I guess maybe if you miss a PAT, I kind of like the way that would work. If you miss a PAT, you lose a point. If you miss a regular field goal, maybe you lose 1.5 or 2 points or something like
So
that.
is your
Just
argument just because they're kickers, their job is to kick, they miss the easy ones, they got to lose points?
Yeah.
But they
Because
already
if that's it, right? Maybe minus 0.5 for drops on wide receivers on catches.
I don't think you can do it. I don't
Their
think
job is to catch balls, right? Just throwing it out there.
I think that's a fair
Yeah.
point system that you could do, but I don't think Sleeper will even allow it. But if we're talking about things that Sleeper will allow that, I would like to see change, I think a pick 6 should still be -6 points in Sleeper too. It's in Yahoo, it's that way. And
Was it
Sleep,
-4?
I think it's just -2.
I
Oh.
think the biggest rule change that needs to happen. I can't believe no one has brought this up at all out of all the years. Is off-season ad drops.
Yes. Yes.
I'm just
No.
kidding.
You're on
just
the
kidding.
right track, Steve. That's exactly what we want to do. I think the majority in the league want that. It's just a matter
I'm
of getting
totally
it
kidding.
Doesn't
Dude. We're not
work.
doing off-season ad drops.
Well, I've heard rumors that people's opinions are changing. True. And I think things are going to get pushed through this year. So, I'm glad to have you on our side, Steve. And, commissioner runs this league as a democracy, not a dictatorship. And as co-commissioner, I'm going to do my best to get enough supporters to get that rule through.
Well, we're running out of time, so
Let's
we'll
wrap it up. Yeah. What do we
But,
got for superlatives for the year and bold predictions? You guys got anything?
Well, how about we do this? How about we do for next season, who is the most improved from this season to next season, and who's going to be worse off next season? We'll
All
start
right,
with
I'll go first.
or Steve.
All right, sorry. I think Alex is probably most improved because his young players only get more playing time next year. I think least improved, to be honest, I hate to say it, it's Matt. He's traded his first round pick away. His players are only getting older, and he just had back-to-back bottom 4 finishes.
It's a fair point. Brian?
Most improved for next year. I agree with Alex. I think his team's going to do better in the coming years, and he should have came in higher than the 8th already. And the one that's not going to be as good as might be my team. My players are getting kind of old, and even though they're really good, I thought I'd have to rebuild next year. I got a couple first round picks now, or at least 1 or 2. So probably mine.
Yeah. All right. Well, I think probably a pretty easy one to predict. I think there's no way Hugo can do any worse. I think his team, it's kind of a shock that he was out of the playoffs. I can see Hugo coming back up to a top 4 team. If I'm gonna say somebody that's gonna drop off, you guys don't agree with that? Somebody that's gonna drop off. I'd have to think about it. I guess I'm gonna go ahead and say Brennan doesn't make the playoffs next year.
Oh,
I think Brennan is close enough to, I still think he has a good team, but without his draft picks, I think it's gonna be tough sledding again next year.
I just want to point out, too, just the beauty of fantasy right